Welcome to Grief with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course the best medicine of them all, reflect on cherished memories, remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to groove with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Groove with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep it with the latest and greatest of all with Groove with Portia. So today, everybody, I have the honor of being joined by Lisa Council, and Lisa is the host of the podcast SHIFT, which stands for Self-Healing Ignites Flourishing Transformation. Let me say that again. Self-Healing Ignites Flourishing Transformations. And I have Lisa on today because, let's be realistic, after 32 years, her grief journey has taken a new trajectory. Her dear sister, Linda, experienced domestic violence and that ended her life. And today, Lisa's going to share with us how she's been able to really channel her grief and create a movement in honor of Linda and help other women today through that journey of domestic violence. So Lisa, welcome to Groove with Portia. How are you today?
Wonderful. I am honored and blessed to be here. Just thank you so much for extending the invitation, and I'm super excited, Portia.
Excellent. Lisa, one of the things I always love to do is start off my conversations with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful for life. For another day to right my wrongs, and to grow and live in purpose. That's what I'm grateful for on today.
You know, I feel it. I mean, because sometimes, as I brought up, when we experience the loss of our person, and for
Mhm.
you, it's been 32 years since your sister Linda, her transition happened. And I'm curious, Lisa, as we're coming up on this 32nd anniversary of Linda's transition, what has been the trajectory of your grief journey over these last 32 years? And as her anniversary returns, do you notice a shift, no pun intended, in
Mhm.
how you honor her legacy and also how you grieve on the day?
Absolutely. I would describe my grief journey as a merry-go-round. Just going around in circles. Of course, when I first lost my sister to domestic violence, who was brutally murdered by her husband, of course, like anyone else going through the grief journey, it was complete shock. And then there was denial. I went through survivor's guilt, as I still go through from time to time. But I also noticed that for many years, I would say for about up to 20 years, I always gave myself permission to be angry, to be sad as we were coming up on that time. You have to be sad, Lisa, because we're coming up on that time and your sister isn't here, Linda's no longer here. So I would say maybe weeks leading up to her, the anniversary, which I don't like to call it, but the anniversary of her death, I would say I would immediately starting to become sad. I did not want to be around friends and loved ones. There was times when I would lock myself in a dark room. And about 10 years ago, when I started on my journey to healing, I started getting counseling, and just being more intentional about wanting to do something different, and saying to myself, Lisa, you don't have to stay in this place. You don't have to feel the way that everyone else felt, because one of the things I dealt with was being guilty because I knew that my parents would be sad. I knew that other families would be sad or dealing with their feelings of grief and such. And I always wanted to do what I thought would make them happy. And sometimes that meant being on the pity party with them. But about 10 years ago, Portia, I started on my journey towards healing. And instead of me giving myself permission to say, oh, we're just going to be sad and we're just going to make ourselves feel like the world is coming to an end today, I gave myself permission to say, I want to honor my sister differently. I want to remember her beauty. I want to remember her strength. I want to remember the way when she walked in the room and she just left a lasting impression on others. I want to just remember her for the beautiful person that she was and still is to me. So I started my own nonprofit organization. Well, leading up to that, I started a podcast, and I started honoring Linda in that way, and just trying to give other people's, light and hope and inspiration and encouragement while also trying to encourage myself. And from there, that journey was leading into a transformation and a shift for me as well. And now, what I do, Portia, is I give myself permission to just celebrate Linda, honor the things that she loved. I always wear butterflies. She loved butterflies. I love pearls. She loved pearls. Her favorite color was pink. And instead of I just had to do something different. The beating myself up and giving myself permission to just be in a dark space was not working for me anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have those days when I may be in a dark place or space, but I'm able to lift myself back up out of that dark space in that place and just give myself permission to celebrate her life. And and that might be through laughter when I'm thinking about something we did in our childhood, and it just may be through wearing a butterfly every day. People always say, why do you wear butterflies? And I explain to them why. It's not that I necessarily love butterflies, but I do it to honor my sister. And just putting myself and lifting myself up, and giving myself permission to be in a different frame of mind.
And Lisa, I love, first of all, thank you for being so vulnerable and honest about
Hmm.
that feeling of anger, right? That
Hmm.
survivor's guilt, right?
Yes.
Feeling as though you have to be the strong one, wearing the
Hmm.
strong woman cape. Because I think, let's be realistic, in the African American community, as Black women, there's this hidden expectation that you have to hold all the weight on your shoulders of the family's burdens.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And,
Also, in the African American families, we don't give ourselves permission to be open to something different. This is the way that we're supposed to feel. This is the way that we're supposed to handle it. And also, we don't give ourselves permission to heal. It's such a stigma and taboo when we're talking about our families. Okay, we're going to brush this thing under the rug. We're never going to talk about it again. We're not going to tackle how we're dealing with our feelings. We just going to go on with life. And we're going to keep moving forward, when in essence we don't understand or realize that we're holding ourselves back. There is light at the end of the tunnel. you know
yeah, and essentially you're keeping your own self nailed to a cross
yes,
instead
yes.
of, because I love how you mentioned, Lisa, that you made a choice to
Hmm.
do something differently. You gave yourself permission to feel angry, to feel
Yes.
hurt. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, Lisa, for our audience, what did it take for you to begin to build that relationship with your anger and your tears? Because let's be realistic,
Hmm.
that as a woman,
Hmm.
we're highly stigmatized when we show
Hmm.
any ounce of frustration, anger. We're expected to be the little doll that you just sit on the shelf and you just sit like this all day and take
Yes.
the weight of the world. So what did it take for you to build that relationship with your anger and your tears and not feel as though you have to continue to stifle them like most people do when they're grieving?
One of the things I had to do, and I'm still working through, Portia, is giving myself permission to not care what other people feel and think. Because oftentimes when we are moving from one place to another, people are watching you. And specifically, it could be people in your family watching you. And because, like I said, they feel a certain way, they expect for you to feel that way as well. Not fully realizing the burden that they are placing upon you. And sometimes I had to figure out myself is that I'm carrying other people's burdens. I'm not even carrying my own burden. I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. I want to live my life on and with some type of purpose. But I also felt like, oh, I have to be sad because my mom is sad, or I have to be sad because I'm thinking about, my sister's daughters. I have to be sad because everybody else is sad. And one of the things that really kept me in bondage, Portia, for many years is there is always another side to when you are dealing with an individual in your family who has been murdered. So, we went through trial, and then for years we went through parole hearings, and so it was just as if you can never catch a break. You're always eating, breathing, sleeping, and living. Okay, I'm getting ready to go for this next parole hearing in a year or 2 years. So you're mentally preparing yourself and emotionally preparing yourself for the next, and for me, I just had to even get to a point where I said, well, maybe the parole hearings is something that I should not do, but I felt that I owed it to my family to continue to go on. Although, yes, I did want justice for my sister to continue on, but at what point do you set yourself free? So I had to give myself permission to not be angry when I wanted to be happy. I would feel guilty if I had a sense of joy and happiness. And, I would just say, okay, you're supposed to be sad because everyone else around you is sad. So I just had to pull myself up. And honestly, Portia, that came with a lot of praying, of course. It comes with a lot of, mental, staying on top of my mental and emotional health, as well as giving myself permission to seek therapy. And so, yeah, giving myself permission, because some people, of course, in our community just would say, well, why do you need that? God heals everything in his own time. Time heals all wounds, all of these things that you hear. Well, time doesn't heal all wounds. We have to do that internal work. So I'm still a work in process. I'm still a work in progress. I live day to day. There may be a moment when I'm just like, oh my gosh, this really happened to, my family. And as the years go by, I noticed that the grieving became more because I was more in tune with reality. Like, I'm never going to see her again. I mean, it's been 10, 20 years. And well, people say that time heals all wounds and God doesn't put more on you than you can bear. And I'm like, okay, these are all lies. these are lies. So, I gave myself permission, and I continuously to give myself permission to deal with and live in reality. That there are going to be some good days, there are going to be some bad days.
I love, Lisa, how you brought up about the stigma all over again in the African
Mhm,
American community of seeking help and the
mhm,
regurgitated platitudes of time heals all wounds, or give it to
mhm.
God, he'll take your burdens away from you. At the same time, God gave you a brain and also other people to help you to work with this
Yes.
heaviness, right?
Mhm,
And Lisa, I love how you brought up too about showing up at the different trials and the paroles. Would you
mhm.
be so kind, Lisa, to share with our audience where that is today after 32 years of Linda's passing?
after 32 years of Linda's passing, my family and I have gone through, and don't quote me on the totals, I could be wrong because at some point you sort of lose track. So I would say we went through a total of 7 parole hearings, and last year was the last time we went up for a parole hearing, and my sister's murderer, who was her husband, he was actually denied parole for the 7th time, and that was in July of 2024. And within a month's time, he was also moving forward with a trial or a hearing for a compassionate release because of his age. So he had served 20 plus years in prison, and he was now turning 60 years old. And to be quite honest with you, Portia, he had been the model prisoner. He had done everything right throughout his serving his prison term. He had never been into any trouble. He was able to maintain employment, through the penal system. He was also in a few programs where he helped other prisoners who were in the penal system. So he had what you call a grid score. It's a grid score they go from, and I don't know what those numbers are, but he basically had a grid score of 0. He had done everything right, nothing wrong, and so what we thought was him being denied for compassionate release ended up being permission for him to gain a compassionate release. So we went from 1 month of him being denied parole again for the 7th time to moving on to being granted a compassionate release, which was very difficult for us because we were trying to understand, okay, we just had a parole hearing less than a month ago and he was denied, and now he is being given permission to receive a compassionate release. And then within another month's time, within September, which was around my sister's birthday, he was released from prison after serving 20 plus, almost 30 years in prison. um that was extremely difficult for each of us, of course, my family and I, but also for me, to be quite honest with you, when we were in the hearing on that particular day in August, and the judge said compassionate release granted, I felt a relief come over me. I honestly did. And I felt guilty because I didn't feel like it was something that I could share with my family at the time, but it was as if an elephant fell off of my back that I had been carrying for so many years. Because, like I said, when you're going up for these parole hearings and your ultimate goal is to fight for justice for your loved one, you are spending countless nights wondering, what can I say? What can I do? What could I have said differently? What am I going to say the next time? And those hearings come up so abruptly. You are preparing from year to year or every other year, and you are sleeping, and breathing, thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if this person actually is set free? And that's how I lived my life for about 30 plus years. I lived my life that way. Okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to react? And you have so many emotions going on at the same time. Not only are you dealing with a death, but you're dealing with a brutal murder, a heinous crime. And when I heard compassionate release granted, it was just almost as if I said, wow, I am set free as well. I don't have to worry about another parole hearing. I don't have to worry about sleepless nights wondering what I am going to say. And that particular day after that hearing was over, I went home and I cried for I screamed, I yelled, I cried, I kicked, I called a few close people that, that had been on this journey with me. And after I screamed, yelled, kicked, cried, I just said, "Thank you, God. It's over. It's done." And that doesn't mean that I don't live my life today thinking, "Oh well, justice was not served for my sister," because it was. It really was. We got more time than we actually would have gotten, because I've seen some families go through this process, Portia, and maybe 3 or 5 years, and we received 32 years of justice. So I just had to just get on my knees and thank God, because when a part of him being set free, it also set me free as well. I felt like I was no longer his prisoner, because I had also given myself permission to be his prisoner. While he was serving a prison sentence, I was serving a sentence to him, saying, "You can't go on. You have to live this way. You have to be sad. You have to be angry. You can't be happy. You don't have purpose." I live, ate, sleep, and breathed around his whole being. The murder that he had committed, as if I had almost committed the murder. So I had to give myself even in that to allow myself to be set free.
Ooh, Lisa, you almost had me crying for a minute because that sense of relief that
Mm-hmm.
you brought up is
Mm-hmm.
often something that people are afraid to admit. When
Yeah.
I think back to my mom's transition, and it was 3 years this year, my mom
Mm-hmm.
suffered for years being sick. And I remember when we were standing in her hospital room, it was just me and my aunt. And I remember watching her heart stop. And I
Mm.
felt that wave of relief, like it's over.
Yes. Yes.
She
Yes.
doesn't have to keep suffering. And to your point, when you made that decision, Lisa, to
Mm-hmm.
really do your grief differently, honor
Yeah.
Linda instead of being a prisoner of all the emotions, all the societal narratives of how grief is depicted. I
Mm-hmm.
think you were given the greatest gift because you took action to also transform.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. And it hasn't been easy. It comes with being concerned about your loved ones, your families. I'm quite sure you know what I'm talking about, Portia. And just sometimes wondering, not worrying, but wondering, well, what do they think? Because sometimes it can come with some backlash. You just never know. Some people want you to be on that merry-go-round with them, going around and around and around.
Okay.
A wave of emotions. Well, why does she feel good? Well, why shouldn't I not feel good? So it's been interesting to say the least.
Oh, I'm sure. And as we both know, when it comes to grief, even
Mm-hmm.
though we share the common denominator of the person who transitioned, in your case, it's
Mm-hmm.
Linda, for me, it's my mom,
Mm-hmm.
everybody else's relationship with them is different. So their grief is going to look different as well.
Yes.
Lisa, before we wrap up here, first of all, thank you so much for sharing today because I know after 32 years, there's probably some wounds that still sting when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to Linda's passing. And also,
Yes.
you brought up about being proactive with honoring her legacy. For our audience who's here, if they want to connect with you, if they
Mm-hmm.
want to support your foundation, and also if you have upcoming events in honor of Linda, because I know her birthday is September the 1st. So if there's
Yes.
anything you want to share with our audience about initiatives that you're doing or, any way they can support your foundation, please let them know.
Yeah, so the name of my organization, thank you so much, Portia, is SHIFT, which stands for Self Healing Ignites Flourishing Transformation. We do a podcast, monthly podcast, when we can. Sometimes it doesn't run every month, but I also, within my organization, along with the podcast, I do. Coming up, I'm having a luncheon, well, a dinner for, it's called the Pink and Pearls Luncheon, which will honor my sister because she loved pink and pearls. So that's coming up on July 8th, 19th of this month, which is, I think, this coming Saturday. And so it will just be me and my board members for my organization, Shift, and I am Linda's Voice, where we'll just sit down together, have dinner, and honor Linda's life. We're coming up on 32 years. It will be exactly 32 years on July 18th of 2025 that we lost Linda. And I wanted to do something different this year. Normally, I would partner with another organization and we would go to the grave sites and we would honor our loved ones. But I wanted to do something a different this year. I wanted to just sit down, wear pink and pearls, and honor Linda and just honor those who have been on this journey with me. Also, during the month of October, October 25th, I will be having that is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I will be having a domestic violence awareness luncheon in Greenbelt, Maryland, and that will be on October 25th. Well, we will just again honor Linda's legacy, and we will also honor victims and survivors of domestic violence. And what I like to do is I like to pick a child who has lost a parent to domestic violence, as well as a survivor and a thriver of domestic violence, and just honor them. And then in December, I have each December, I have a break the plate event where we come together and we shift. We leave all of those things behind that we want to leave behind and not take them into the new year. We honor and uplift those who join us. And then at the end of the ceremony, we break the plate and we move to a clean slate for, the next year. So I like to do that at the end of the year. For those who would like to reach out, support, sow a seed if you can, or just offer, us an encouraging word. You can contact me at Lisa Renee on Facebook, Lisa Renee, and on Instagram is Lisa Lisac. And if you would like to reach me on my website, the website is shiftinc.org. So, more so than anything, an encouraging word, a prayer to just keep us moving forth. And that's actually how I got through starting my podcast and then moving on to building my foundation, is just by encouraging myself on social media. And then from there, I noticed that me encouraging myself on a morning basis was encouraging others. So that's actually how Shift came about. So, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are being intentional about our healing and in transforming our lives, and hoping, and that others will do the same.
Lisa, you said it all, right? Showing up despite the hurt,
Hmm.
showing up despite how heavy you might feel and what other people might think. How are you standing tall and talking about this when I've been stuck here for 10, 20 plus years? But
Yes.
again, that choice, it started with that initial choice of I want to do my grief differently. I want to show up differently and honor my sister and give that back to other people who have experienced the same situation as my sister or more.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
everybody, that was Lisa Council that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia, everybody. Thanks for listening. And until next time, peace and hair grease, everyone.